Good morning and welcome to West Coast Grandma. Well, today I've kind of set myself up to do 100 things, so it seems. I've got my smoked paprikas all ready to turn into powder. I have my sourdough starter out. I want to make a batch of sourdough bagels. I want to get bread started, and I want to make like 6 apple pies. And when I do that and peel my apples, I have my big jar out here because I'm going to make some apple scrap vinegar. I have videos too for all these posted on my YouTube channel, West Coast Grandma, so please check it out. I have Grandma's Never Fail pie crust, I have smoked paprika, I have my bagels and my sourdough, I mean a bit of everything. So let's get started and get this day going. So I'm going to start off with making my bagels. I typically make these at night, leave them to rise overnight, and bake them first thing in the morning. But today, I want to try to get it all done today. So I'm going to mix them up right now, and I'm hoping that I'm going to bake them later on tonight. So we'll have fresh bagels for tomorrow. I'm mixing all my ingredients together in my stand mixer, and I'll just let them get incorporated together, and then I'm going to let it sit for a couple of minutes. Whoops. Whoops. Meanwhile, I'll feed my starter. Okay, I'm just going to let that sit now for probably, like I say, about maybe 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to let it knead for 7 minutes, and then it's all ready. Okay, well, I'm waiting for the ingredients for my bagels to get all combined and sort of sit and hydrate. I'm just going to grab my blender and turn my dehydrated paprika peppers that have all been smoked for 3 hours into the most delicious spice ever. I've got all my paprikas here that were done. My husband so kindly does that for me, puts them in the smoker and then into the dehydrator. So now into my blender, and we'll have more smoked paprika, which, like I say, is my favorite thing to use in just about everything. I do go through a lot of it. There we go. So I think I have 3 jars. So I have lots of smoked paprika to last me for the whole winter. Meanwhile, I'll clean all this up and I'm going to put my mixer back on for 7 minutes. I'll set my timer, and then the bagels are ready to just sit all day on my stove and ferment. I did buy a package of oxygen absorbers off Amazon, and I am going to put 1 in each of these because I don't want it to get hard and then I can't use it, because that's happened to me before. Good, and I'll put those away for future cooking. Okay, the timer just went for my sourdough bagel batter. There we are, all done. I love that machine, just does it for you. Okay, I put just a drop of oil in this bowl, just so that I can make sure it doesn't stick. There we go, and I'm going to put some plastic wrap over it. And I will probably make these, I don't know, about 7 o'clock tonight. There, now that can sit. 1 down and about 4 to go. So next I'm just going to get organized to start my apple pies. So I always make apple pies and put them in the freezer every year. So I do that, leave them unbaked, just cover them well and put them in the freezer because I have so many apples on my tree. And I've collected lots of nice plates. I love these old glass Pyrex, numerous brands. Today I'm probably going to make 6. So I'm going to get started making my apple pies, and I use my old book here. Our Homes and Gardens new cookbook. I've had this forever. My mom used it forever. So this is the recipe for perfect apple pie. And I have all my pie crust made. I've got this great apple peeler and corer. And I just take that off. And any of the ends I put in my apple scrap vinegar that I'm making. And I have a bowl of water here with some lemon juice in it just to keep the color while I get enough done for one pie. Core is there, they go into my jar. I'm just going to get enough of these apples ready while I'm waiting for my pastry to warm up a little bit. I just took it out of the fridge. Okay, I've just rolled out the pastry for a small pie. Alrighty, so we are going to fill this pie shell with my apples that I've just gotten ready. And I pile it up pretty good because they do cook down. Before I go any further, let's add the other things we need. It says 3/4 to 1 cup of sugar, and I mix my sugar. I'm going to put a little bit of the cane sugar, but the rest of it is going to be sweetener, this one here, because we don't want the sugar. So we're going to do a little bit of both. So it says 1 cup, but this is a small pie. So I've got about maybe half a cup of cane sugar here. And I'll probably use about a half a cup of my sweetener. And 2 tablespoons of flour. And I'm going to put just a sprinkle of salt. And how much cinnamon? 1/2 to 1 teaspoon. So I'm just going to put a 1/2 teaspoon because it's a small pie. And we're going to use a little bit of fresh nutmeg. And I'll just grate it right on there. And then we want 2 tablespoons of butter. So I have a pound of butter out here. So all I'm going to do is cut a couple of nice thin slices and put them on the top like that. And there we are. Okay. So now I'm going to wet the edges here just so that it sticks, because otherwise my top pastry shell is not going to stick to the bottom one. So just run the water and just wet all the way around. So we'll just cut a couple of vents in there. And I'm going to hope that this is going to fit. So now we have our top on. Now we're going to flute the edges, and you can do that however you'd like. I never really got a trick to doing that like my mom used to do. Okay, but you want to do that because that's what's going to seal all the way around and seal those two crusts together. Good. Then I'm just going to take my knife and I'm just going to run all the way around it like that and cut off the excess. Voila, a pie. Now I'm just going to take some cream and I'm just going to brush it on the top. And I'm just going to sprinkle it on the top. And it should be nice and golden brown when it comes out of the oven. And there's our pie. I don't do 3 or 4 and then take them down. I get them straight into the freezer as soon as I can to keep it all cold. These small pies are perfect in these freezer bags. So I've already written on it apple and the date. And this should just slide right in. They don't all fit, but like I say, I have quite a few small pie plates. Alrighty, there it is all ready for the freezer. So I'm going to run this down and continue on making my pies. I'll come back a bit later. And And there we have pie number 2. This time I cut off the edges first and then I flute the edge of the pastry. I thought maybe that was a bit easier. So try both ways, see what works best. But number 2, going in the freezer. And there's pie number 3. This is quite a tiny pie shell, perfect for my husband and I. Pie number 3, going in the freezer. Pie number 4. Pie number 5. And here's pie number 6. This one I'm going to keep for Thanksgiving brunch that we're having with the family this Sunday. So there we are, put some little hearts on it. So there's all my pies done. Now to clean up this huge mess and move on. Okay, next I'm going to make apple cider vinegar. So this was just the cores and the bits that as I was doing the apples, I dropped them into these jars. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to fill them with water, and I'm just going to keep track of the water because for every cup of water, I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of sugar. So the sugar gets eaten by the bacteria culture, the mother, and by the time the vinegar is all done, there's no sugar left in there, just your delicious vinegar. So this vinegar I don't use for canning or anything like that, just because I don't check the acidity level. Instead, what I do is I use it for all of our salad dressings, homemade salad dressings, just numerous things that you would put apple cider vinegar in. It's delicious. So let's just fill these up. That's pretty good. That's 4. 4. 6. I am just gonna take some of the air out of this because I've got to add some of my apple cider vinegar that has the mother in. Now, I usually have my own, and I've often saved the mother, which is that jelly glob that is the bacteria culture. I've just saved it in the fridge, but I don't have any right now. So I had this little jar that I bought of organic apple cider vinegar with the mother, it says. So I'm going to pour a little bit of that into each one of these just to start the process. But first of all, we're going to add our sugar. All right, there's my little pastry. I'll grab that out. And I'm just going to put my tomatoes in. And I will turn this oven up to 425 and put it on for half an hour. And here's my little jam pasty that my husband and I will share later, just with the leftover bits of pastry. So we had 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is what starts the process of the fermentation. Of course, you need the sugar. 3, 4, 6. Alrighty. And I just want to get it stirred up just to get that sugar all mixed in. Okay, and then I'm going to pour this apple cider vinegar that has the mother in it. I'm going to add it to these just to top them up. And that's going to get the process started. Good. So get that mixed in again. Now, because it's fermenting, I don't want anything floating to the surface. I'm just going to go find my little weights. Okay, these are my little weights that I use for fermenting. So I'm going to drop that in because I want to keep all the little bits, nothing floating to the top, because that's what's going to go moldy. Now, if you see mold, that's not good. The mother will form, but we do not want mold. So there we are. Both of those are pretty good. And now I'm just going to take a coffee filter, put it over the top like that, and screw one of my lids on. And that I'm going to let it sit for 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, I'm going to strain it and take out all the apple bits, put it back into the jar, And then I'm going to put my lid the same back on, and then it has to sit for about another 4 to 6 months. So it is a long process, but when it's done, it's delicious. And if you make it every year, when you make your apple pies, when you have your apples, you always have a supply of apple cider vinegar. So I'm just going to get these all ready. I'm going to make some here for my daughter too. And I put the filter on because you just want it to be able to breathe, but you don't want the fruit flies and things like that getting in there. So let me get one more weight. So I'm going to use one of these little silicone burping things. I think I can probably, oh yeah, that works. I'll just push that down and it keeps everything under. I just want to make sure there's nothing on the surface, none of the bits. So then I'm going to put my little coffee filter, which got wet, but it's going to dry out. And I'll put an elastic around that. Good. And I'll just set that on top there. Now that's about all there is to it. So I've got my 3 jars. And I am going to let those sit. I'm going to mark it in my calendar so I don't forget. And we're going to come back and then strain it and put it back in a jar. It'll probably all fit in this big jar. And put it in the cupboard in a dark place. Let it sit for 4 to 6 months till it smells like your apple cider vinegar. Then you know it's ready. So that's that done. I think now I'm going to try to get my bread going so that I can get it in the fridge tonight when I go to bed. I'm going to whip up my regular everyday sourdough bread that makes 2 loaves. And typically I do it first thing in the morning, but I actually have found that I think I'm over fermenting it. In other words, I'm letting it sit out too long in the day. And so it rises quite a bit. I think it's more than doubling. And so then when you go to cook it the next day, you don't get a beautiful rise. It still tastes good, but the loaves are a little flat. So I always have my recipe out. It's 640 grams of warm water. There we are. 642 grams. And we're going to tare it back. And I'm going to add 20 grams of salt. There we go. And now I'm going to put my starter in. Now, I fed my starter this morning because I whipped up the sourdough bagels, and my starter is so good. And so that was probably about 8:30, and it's 12:30, and look at it. It's, I don't know if you can see how bubbly it is, and the jar is full. So it's done well. I've got 300 grams of starter I want in here. There we go. And that I will feed again in a couple of minutes. But first of all, I'm just going to mix this up here, get this going. I always like to mix rye flour in with my regular flour, which again is my milled flour from Nuka Rose Millery. And I want 1,000 grams total. So I'm going to tare this back. And I'm just going to put in, I don't know, 275 of rye. I just like the color, and I like the little bit different flavor. Just adds a little bit to the bread. There we are. We want to get to 1,000 grams. There we are, right on. And I'm just going to use my little Danish whisk here just to mix this up. And all I want to do is just mix this just a little bit, just to get the liquid incorporated in with the flour. And then I'm going to let it sit for, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes. And let the flour hydrate. Then do 3 or 4 stretch and folds. There, that's pretty good. So I'm just going to leave this now and just let it all get nice and hydrated. I'll come back in a bit. I just quickly fed my starter, and I used 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water. And now I'm going to put this right into the fridge. And it will bubble up in the fridge, and I can take it out and use it cold. I've done it, and it makes wonderful bread. So no need to let it sit for too long when you take it out of the fridge. But for now, I can leave it in there until I'm ready to use it again, and it could be a few days up to a week. Okay, I'm just going to get this mixed up again now. I've let it sit for a little while. Just make sure all that flour is in. Okay, I'll clean my fingers off, and I'm going to cover this with cellophane wrap, throw a tea towel over it, and put it on my stove. And I'm going to come back and do a stretch and fold in probably about an hour. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to whip up supper, and I'm going to make a simple recipe of stuffed peppers. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole recipe, but if you go to my daughter's Instagram page, it's Shivas Wild Farm. She has a video on making her version of simple stuffed peppers, which is easy and good. So I'm going to mix all these things together and pop this into the fridge and cook it a bit later. Okay, I'm going to whip everything together here, and I've got 2 dishes. So we'll have dinner tonight, and we'll have one in the freezer for another night. So I roasted the peppers, and they were a couple that I got from a farm stand for $1 each, and the rest were my own. And then I just fried up onions, some celery I got out of the garden. There was leftover rice and hamburger. So I am just basically gonna, I don't even have to be that careful about it. I'm just gonna kind of half sort of stuff these, half just put a scoop on top. I put a couple of hot peppers in it just to give it a little bit of zip. I'm just gonna divide all this up between the 2 dishes. There we are. That looks so good. And I'm just gonna cover it with cheese. This is a mixture of mozzarella and a little piece of cheddar I had left in the fridge. And then I'm just gonna pour my sauce over top, and it's the sauce that I just made when I roasted all those tomatoes. And I just put them all into the blender, and I just tasted it to make sure that it was seasoned properly. And I'm just gonna pour this over top. And I have another little half jar in the fridge that I wanted to use up from my last little batch I made. And there. Dinner for tomorrow and another one for the freezer. So I'm going to pop one of those in the fridge, one in the freezer. Meanwhile, I'm going to grab my sourdough bread here and just do one more stretch and fold. And I always wet my fingers first. Oh yeah, it's starting to get all bubbles. Oh, this is coming together nicely. Then I'm just going to cover it up again with my plastic wrap and throw a tea towel over it and put it back on my stove again. I'll probably do one more stretch and fold. Okay, my bagel dough is ready to go. So I'm just going to work at getting these onto these 2 trays and getting them formed into bagels and cover them up for a little bit. Just let them sit before I cook them. I always weigh it first, because then I divide it by 10, because I know I'm always going to get 10 bagels. Good. So 1,200 grams, so now I know. Well, I got 11. Now I'm going to do my bread, because it has doubled in size for sure. And I do not want it over fermented. I am actually going to make one of these into a loaf. And I have a cast iron loaf pan. It works really well. Okay, I'm going to put these in my bags and they're going to go into the fridge, and that's it till the morning. I will come back and show you when I bake them tomorrow. And there's my loaf pan going into another bag. These are the extra large freezer bags. Again, they work so well. So I'll come back and show you after I bake these tomorrow. Well, there's my bagels. So it goes to show that you can start the dough in the morning and bake them at night if you really need them. They look delicious. Well, welcome back. I am just going to score my 2 loaves of sourdough bread here and get them in the oven. And I will come back and show you later on. There we are. We enjoyed our bagels for breakfast. They were delicious. So I do have a video I will post at the end of making those bagels. They are so good and simple, and now I know I can make them in the morning and cook them at night. So there we go. They're going to go in the oven. I'm throwing 3 ice cubes in the bottom. Seems to help with the steam. Good. I will just come back and show you that bread when it comes out of the oven. Well, there we have my 2 loaves. They look delicious and smell delicious. I'm not going to cut it open and show you the crumb just because it's too hot right now, but I know it's going to be good. So I hope you've enjoyed that day with me, getting some things done, making a few different things. I will try to attach all the videos at the end. Hope you have a great day. West Coast Grandma is signing out.